All right, and I think we can add the last piece of functionality to our card, and that is counting the totals. And again, we'll set up a use effect. So every time the state value will change, of course, we will invoke that function. More precisely, we will dispatch an action to count the totals. And we already have the use effect, correct? Because if we take a look at the card context, we were setting up our cart every time the card changed in the local storage. So we just need to piggyback this dispatch here as well. Now, before I set this up, I also would want to add the amount, so the state value, to my card buttons. Because if you remember, the moment we have only the functionality to toggle the sidebar, and we're actually hard coding this value. But even though at the moment it is 0, I know that during this video we'll set up the functionality where, of course, this value will change. So we might as well just grab it over here. And the name is total and then underscore items. And that is equal to my use card context. We just need to invoke it. And if everything is correct, the moment it should be 0. So say here total underscore and items. And I can see it on the big screen. And on the small screen, I just need to open up the sidebar. And there it is. Now, of course, I have the 0. Then, like I said, in the card context, I would want to piggyback here in the use effect where I have my local storage. And before or after, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to set up my dispatch. And I'll dispatch an action by the name of count cart totals. So every time I'll change something in the cart, it's going to be displayed in multiple places. Again, the type was count cart totals. Let's save that one. Yes, there's going to be big fat error because, of course, we invoke it right away when the component mounts, and we're not handling that in the reducer. So now, of course, we just need to go back to the cart reducer and handle that action as well. So in the cart reducer, keep on scrolling right here. We're going to go with if and then action. That type is equal to count cart totals. Then, of course, I would want to reduce over my cart. And the way we'll do that, again, similarly like we did in that previous use reducer project, we're just going to iterate over our array. In this case, we will do that using reduce. And then we'll just count for every item what is the price and what is the amount of items we have in the cart. So let's go here with const. I know that I'm going to be returning a object from my reduce. So I'll right away destructure it. So say here state and then cart and reduce. Now in the reduce, we pass in the callback function. And in the callback function, we have two params. We have total, or you can name it whatever you like. In my case, I'm naming this total. That represents whatever we are returning from reduce. And also we have card item. As a side note, I do have JavaScript Nuggets video on this. So if you're lost at some point, just go to the JavaScript Nuggets series and I explain that in greater detail over there. As far as the return, I would want to return a object. And in that object, there's going to be two properties. Now I'll name them exactly like I have in card context because I don't want to keep on using both of them since I can just use my ES6 thing where if the name is exactly the same, then I can just keep on using the same name. So say total and then items. By default, it's going to be 0. Don't worry. Functionality is coming up. And the same goes for total, and underscore amount, which also by default will be 0. So once I know that I'm returning object with these two values, of course, I can destructure it here as well. Correct? I can say total and then underscore items and then total underscore amount. And then even though we haven't set up the functionality yet, I know that I'll return my state, and then state. And then I would want to change to properties, the total items and total amount. And since names match exactly to whatever I have already, I just simply can write total underscore items and then total underscore amount, like so. And now we just need to set up the functionality. Now, one gotcha with the reducer, we always need to return our total. So let's start with that one because it's easy to make that mistake. And then, of course, functionality will break. And please keep in mind that in each iteration, I'm accessing the card item. Now, what kind of properties I have in the card item? I have the amount and the price, correct? So I can just destructure that. I can say price and amount is coming from my cart item. And then as far as the items, the total items in the cart, what do I need to do? Well, I have the object. Object has a value of number. So in each iteration, I just want to grab the amount value and add it to that total items. So we simply say with total, that's my object. The property name is total items and plus equals, since I wouldn't want to override that value, I would just want to add to that value. I just add my amount. And then when it comes to the total amount, so that is going to be the price multiplied by amount. Again, the same exact setup where we go with total and then total amount. So that's going to be the total money amount. And in this case, I'll say plus equals, and I just need to multiply price by the amount. Since, of course, in order to get my total, I need to know how many items of this particular product I have multiplied by the product price, and that will be added to my total amount. And once we save, since we already are setting up everything in local storage as well, that's why I'm getting my items, and I can make my calculation where I have right away 4 and 3. And you know what? In this case, it's going to be easier if we go to the big screen, check it out. So this is going to be the subtotal for those items, of course, and I can have the total subtotal as well. And then I just add a shipping fee, and this is going to be my cart total. And as I'm changing my values, notice every time we are invoking, of course, the use effect, and that's why we can count our totals. And notice here in the cart, I also can see that how many items I have. That should do it for the cart. And I think now we can start working on the user.